So welcome to first episode. Simon Price, Johnny Malloy. We're doing a bit of grappling talk and
Everything.
when we sort of like started doing this, we sort of put a question out to sort of the guys that we coach and got quite a few questions back really.
Yeah,
so what I'll do is I'll ask you the first question, get your take on it, and then we'll sort of expand on it from there, innit? So I think one of the things that comes up quite frequently, I guess like everyone's like got busy lives and that, like how would you sort of advise someone to prioritize their mat time to kind of maximize it and they can learn as much as they can and still make decent progress where they can only make say 2-3 sessions a week?
Yeah, I think to start with, I think your relationship with your coach has got to be really important. Obviously, we're both coaches, but we know quite a few students that probably don't talk to us very often.
Yeah.
You see them in the gym, and they're in the gym doing well when they're here. But if you're not asking your coach, where am I? Where's my progress? You're just doing it yourself and probably watching Instagram a lot and watching YouTube a lot and instructionals, but without getting that face to face, hey, where am I? What do I need to work on? I think it's got to start there, really.
How would you say is like maybe best way for them to approach that then? Because sometimes, so I can imagine like traditional martial arts, it's kind of hard to initially approach the coach. Like it's kind of drilled into us sometimes that there's a custom to it or there's like a etiquette to do it. Whereas like I know myself and you do as well, we kind of try to make ourselves quite approachable. And
I know we don't look it.
Shaved head and looking typical Jiu-Jitsu starter kid. But yeah, how would you say is the best way for them to maybe approach it?
I think just when they feel comfortable to ask anytime. I know me and you, we love when people ask us questions. Yeah. So if you are listening, you're wondering when to ask or how to ask, that's what we're here for. We love them questions and conversations. So
100%. I think one of my favourite things to do as well is try and get feedback roles with any of the members or the students. And sometimes it may look like it's hard to sort of approach the coach for that kind of round, especially if they're sort of like middle of an open mat and they're just getting sort of hard rounds or intense rounds in. One thing that I'll prioritise is if I've not rolled with somebody recently and they come over and ask, but say someone that I roll with regularly has already sort of asked me for that next round, I'll prioritise that person that I've not rolled with recently, especially if I want to, like, if they're asking for progress reports and kind of asking for a bit of feedback on where to go next. So I think, especially when you see like the coach sparring, asking them for sort of rounds as well, is quite an important part of it.
Yeah, and also just to carry on that kind of topic, don't ask unless you're ready to receive.
That's a very good point, actually.
If you're asking, hey, where do I need to progress, but you're not really ready to receive what you need to progress on.
Yeah.
Some of the most powerful answers I've got is when I've asked coaches, what's my weakest points? I know, and they've been honest. One of them was, you need to twat people more in the gym, they're too nice. And I was like, oh, they're right, maybe I do. So being ready for the feedback, and then when you've got the feedback, actually put it into action, because otherwise there's no point really asking, is there?
No, that's a great point, actually. It's some point I've never thought to put on myself, to be fair. Because like you can have it where like you get some conversations where you're giving that kind of feedback and you may not necessarily always see them putting the feedback you've given into practice. Whether it's getting someone who's fairly new who doesn't want to play off their back and maybe like, look, you just need to learn to escape more, you need to spend more time defending, playing the positions that you don't like, or even other way around, someone's got a very competent guard, but they're just not used to fighting for that top position and sort of pinning somebody and holding them down for the duration of the round. Yeah, I think they've got to be ready to apply it and get that feedback. And with regards to sort of like the time restraint as well, how would you say is best for them to sort of maximise their time on the mats, like during the classes?
Yeah, it's a good one. So I think if a class starts at 6 and you can only get there at 6, I understand if you can only get there at 6 or 6:10, whatever, you've got a busy life. But for people that can get there earlier, what you have to ask yourself, why you're not getting there earlier. Like if you can get there at 5:30, 5:45, and you can get ready and get on the mat and grab a partner and go over scenarios, you're going to get 50 more sessions, 50 more blocks of training in compared to someone else. On the other foot, if you're busy, you've got work till 5:45, 5:30, whatever, you've got kids, you've got a busy family life. If you can only get there at 6, 6:10, understand that's going to be your level, and that's going to be, you're there 50 minutes or you're only there for 2 hours. You've got to lock in. You've got to, right, again, ask the coach, what do I need to work on? And be here. Don't be here. Oh yeah, I'm going through the motions, and I'm like, yeah, I'm doing okay in the rounds.
Yeah.
Actually, be 100% here. Don't just kind of be going through the motions, I'd say.
No, that's a very good point. That, like, sometimes, like, I've had them training sessions where, like, it's had a long day or got shit going on where you kind of do turn up sometimes and you are kind of just going through the motions and you kind of...
They're going to happen, aren't they?
Yeah, like you say, there's a lot more to this sport than just the progress and the sort of physicality side of it. Like, there's a lot of people that get into it for the sort of mental aspects as well and the sort of the mental relief side of it. And actually, I can test for myself where I've benefited shitload from that.
Yeah, I'm just going off like obviously, like I said.
Oh, of course, yeah.
If you're just focusing on progress and the skills, and you're only training twice a week, then.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Come in and get to it.
But yeah, that's just sort of like, sometimes like there's that guilt in there associated with when you're having those kind of sessions. You're kind of going, oh fucking hell, I'm not making the progress, or you come in and you have that just session where you're off and you may feel like you've made no progress there. But it's like sometimes turning up on those off days is what you need to make progress, because they're the days that you're going to maybe get highlighted where
those days.
Yeah, those days are fucking hard, where you like spend more time than you want in bottom side control getting smashed, and it might realise that.
Miss those days.
Yeah. And like you might be like, side control bottom might be the fucking place you need to spend more time in, because when you come in and you're fucking flying off the handle, you're not going to put yourself in those situations as much, are you? Because you're buzzing. Which sort of like, for me as well, when it comes to training rounds and rolling rounds, like, put yourself in those situations that you know you struggle with, especially when it comes to less experienced players. In the sense of, if there was a competition or if it was sort of like a more full tilt round, more often than not, you are going to win that round. So like, when you're training for your progression, like, there's no need to win every fucking round that's there. Like,
you lose in the end.
Yeah.
So that's the powerful thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
You win, but you lose in the end. Your skills are suffering.
It's like winning that short-term battle, but you're going to lose the overall war with it, because those who are able to put their ego aside and allow themselves to be in those situations to work out of them, they're going to start to take over those who can't do that in the long run. And then that's when the frustration kicks in, and that's when you probably see a lot of people kind of leave the sport because they're kind of going, oh, fucking hell, I'm not seeing any progress here.
Yeah. So just like diving into Gideon's question a bit more, he asked, like, is it quality rather than quantity for people that are busy? I had a stage at Blue Belt when I lived over in New Zealand where I just focused on defense for 1 year. I was just like, I'm just going to focus on defense. I just made that decision. I think I saw a clip of Gordon Ryan and Gary Tolman talking about it, and it just became really difficult to submit. And then the purple belt landed in the lap. It's like, but how many people come in the gym and they're just like, I'm going to give up side control. I'm going to, let someone put me in single leg X or a heel hook. It's very rare that
Yeah.
people do that. So yeah, food for thought. If you're only coming in twice a week and you're trying to win, well, you are avoiding bad positions by trying to win.
Yeah.
So you might be beating people in the gym, but are you actually getting better?
Yeah. And like I say, the perception will be there that you probably think you are getting better, but you're not allowing the holes in your game to be exposed, and you will come across players at your level who will be better than you because they've allowed those holes to be exposed and also been able to work on them and develop in those areas.
Yeah. So is it quality or quantity? It's quality.
Yeah, 100%.
Quality, yeah.
100%.
I mean, you can train 5 times and just be going through the motions, can't you?
So I had a similar thing. I think I was at purple belt, and I felt quite good in my defense. Felt good in my guard passing, but my submission rate was dog shit. And I was like, for me, kind of like I wanted to figure out, okay, where's my favorite position to attack from, and do I get there often, and also how often do I finish from that position? And for me, that position was back control, and I wasn't getting many finishes, and I also didn't have many ways to get there, or I couldn't get there very frequently that successfully. And I did a similar thing where for the next 12 months of that period, my sole focus was get to the back and find as many different pathways to get there. And I wasn't overly fussed at the start of finishing from that position.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get as many pathways as I could to get to that position, and then also figure out my personal nuances for controlling that position. So I think like as you develop as a grappler and you sort of grow as an athlete, you have to start figuring out your own nuances and sort of individualize your game. Selfishly, from a coach's perspective, like I don't want a mat full of imitations. I want variety in my own personal training as well, which is what I love about sort of the way that we coach here. It's sort of we give the guidelines and the structure and sort of the concepts and the ideas to play with and the techniques that they need to sort of fill the game with. But we're not kind of saying you have to play this way.
You have to wrestle.
Yeah, get on top. We're sort of give that freedom for the players to sort of find their own sort of style, and then we kind of help them mold further into that. So like, say we've got some very good guard players in the gym, and wrestling might not be something that they're comfortable with doing in competition.
Yeah.
But it's still going to have to be sort of like an essential part of their training, because if they want to play guard, to pull guard effectively, from my personal opinion, is you've got to be able to close the distance, get your grips, and pull into an offensive guard and attack pretty much straight away.
Yeah.
And there's a wrestling element to that. And if you're kind of not learning wrestling within your sort of training regime to get to those positions, you're giving yourself a massive sort of gap that it's going to be pretty difficult to fill, especially as your training partners and the competition scene continues to progress past that as well.
Yeah. All skills, aren't they?
Yeah.
Should we do another question?
Yeah. So the next question that was came up was, I think it's quite a pretty fun one, to be fair. What 3 pieces of advice would you give to your sort of younger self within the first 2 to 3 years of training?
I honestly find this hard.
I
find this hard for me because I'd already come from a sporting background, so I kind of had a good idea of how to dissect training.
Yeah. Maybe go back to your early rugby days then. So like your early sort of training days within sport.
What mistakes I made there?
Yeah, and what like sort of 3 key pieces of advice you'd give for like the younger you getting into like a skill based sport.
Or like if you was getting into jiu-jitsu, what advice would I give you? There's a lot of things you can control. Your diet, often your punctuality, your discipline, and obviously what you're doing in the gym. Obviously, most people are only focused on what they're doing in the gym and not the other 2 aspects. So when I started jiu-jitsu, I already was a professional, so my diet, my discipline, all the other stuff, sleep, all that stuff was taken care of. And then when I got on the mat, I was already an athlete, so I think obviously a lot of people are doing that backwards. They're trying to get good at jiu-jitsu, and then they struggle with the stuff outside, and they don't really address it because they think that you can only be strong if you take steroids. When really, if they do strength training, they're going to be in good shape. It's going to help them on the mat. So, but yeah, I think looking at what you can control off the mat and being honest with yourself and have a look at your own personal goals and say, can I do more? And am I really going all in? Answer's probably going to be no. Not that you have to go all in, but if you're serious about jiu-jitsu and you're obsessed with it and you want to get better, there's probably a lot of things that you're not doing.
Yeah.
So if you're just starting out, I think you can give a lot of blue and purple belts competitive rounds and competitive training if you're doing little things that they're probably not, like warming up, for example, turning up early, warming up, having good conditioning. Is I had a lot of high level, I had professional coaches in rugby that saying you should never be tired.
Yeah.
Ever. So I was always conditioned. We did conditioning.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu people don't do conditioning. They just come up, turn up, roll, get out of breath, sit down, feel like they should have a drink because they've done a 3-minute round. But if you're trying to, if you've only been training, if you've just started and you've only been training for a short period of time, if you can have a look on the mat and say, oh, he gets tired after 2 rounds, or she gets tired after a few rounds. If I don't get tired, I'll overtake them.
Yeah.
Or I'll be able to get more quality training in.
No, definitely. I think there's you can see that as well on the not only in the high level competition scene, but also sort of locally in the gym. Like the younger kind of, well, not necessarily younger, but like the ones that like say have the conditioning, are then able to sort of progress and surpass some of the more experienced players on the mats through having that element of their athleticism sort of come into play a little bit as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna probably embarrass someone here, but Joe, the big lad, I'm gonna use him as an example, like about being a natural athlete or working hard. He's always early.
Yeah.
He's always 30 minutes early for training. Someone had him in a single leg the other day. Did a backflip to get out. Did a backflip to get out of it. And I was like, what was that? And is he an athlete or is he just hard working? It looks like he's hard working.
Yeah.
Not saying that he doesn't look like an athlete, but it's the people that are rolling in 10 minutes later are not the people that are doing extraordinary things very often on the mat. It's very often the opposite way.
Oh.
The ones that are turning up early do the extraordinary things most of the time in sport, I think.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense that. Yeah. I think as well, one thing I'd add to that as well is I wish that I'd asked more questions of those around me as well. So not just sort of asking my coach for feedback, after a round where you might have only caught 20, 30 seconds of that round. For me, the best time to ask your coach for feedback is straight after a round with them, or general feedback from what they've observed, or kind of being could you watch this next round for me and give me a bit of feedback on it? Because a lot of the time there's 30, 40 people on the mat and you're only getting sort of snapshots of what people are doing.
Yeah.
Unless, like you say, it's a really exciting round and then you tend to watch that for entertainment value as opposed to sort of giving sort of critical feedback sometimes. So asking your training partners for feedback, say if you thought you were on a submission and they got out of it, be like, how can I make that better for next time? How did you escape? Or if someone keeps passing your guard or taking you down in a certain way, asking them what it is that they're doing to sort of keep doing that and how you can sort of stop them from doing that. Because at the end of the day, the better you get at defending those things as well, it's going to force them to then get better at attacking those things. And it's just like an ongoing cycle of progression where you're constantly pushing each other, and you should want all your training partners to try and surpass you, because as they're doing that, you've got to get better to keep up with them as well.
Yeah.
And I think as well, it's another, like say the conditioning, that was something that I kind of picked up on a little bit later on in my training. Like, I loved being strong when I first started training, but I was never kind of pushing for that cardio side of things. And the more experience I've got, and when I've sort of like competed, the better conditioning that I've had has given me much more confidence on the mat, on competition, but also during training sessions, during those like kind of those tough sessions that sometimes you get a little bit of anxiety going into it, because you kind of go, I know it's going to be a hard session this, and then afterwards you're feeling fucking mint after the session for getting through it. But like, the better your conditioning, the better your fitness is, and the more robust your body is, the less anxiety you're going to get over doing those sessions.
Yeah. Another point I'd make with, some advice for the first year of your training or the first few years. If you're going against someone more experienced, play defense.
Yeah.
Be go in a defensive cycle, because all too common, I'll go against a white belt, for example, and or a blue belt, and they'll rush forward like immediately and tap hands. They'll try and attack immediately. I've seen what you're going to do thousands of times. I'm going to arm drag you. I'm going to get on your back and I'm going to strangle you.
Yeah.
You're going to get frustrated. You're going to tap my hand. You're going to do the exact same thing. I can read it. You're just not going to stop it. So slow your pace down and be more relaxed. If you're relaxed, I can't set my traps as easy.
Yeah.
And you're going to get a lot more out of the round because you're relaxed. So maybe try that against more experienced players. That's going to make them have to come up with different ways to get you.
100%.
And then you're going to get more mat time, less injuries on the back of that.
I think as well, you're going to see like different aspects of the round as well. So like, you may get yourself into different positions that you may not be as familiar with, or even like, you may find ways to counter attack off the back of that defensive cycle, which, like, once you start developing that side of your game as well, things really start to open up a lot more for you.
Yeah, definitely.
So what we'll go into next then, mate, because I think we both got like different backgrounds of how we got into the sport. I think we'll start with your journey, if you want, mate. Like, how, like, maybe if you want to start with prior to the sport, how you got into, just sport in general, what your journey was like before Jiu-Jitsu.
It's a long one. It's a long one.
That's it, we're here for it.
Yeah, so I started playing rugby league when I was about 6. My dad forced me to pick a sport and follow it. Took me to, my older brother played rugby league, so I naturally wanted to do that. I did that until about 14, 15 when I started getting into professional setup. Had a lot of setbacks from there, being told that I wasn't big enough and I wasn't good enough and that I'd never play first grade, which created a lot of hunger to prove people wrong. Before signing professional at 18, rugby was like my life's goal, was to play professional rugby league. But I came across Jiu-Jitsu when I was 15, because rugby teams, especially high level professional athletes, they make you cross train wrestling like twice a week. But we were wrestling every day anyway, because we're tackling each other. So we're grappling every day anyway. So I got exposed to Jiu-Jitsu in a rundown gym in St. Helens. The gym I'm not going to name because they probably like to be anonymous. One of the guys there just took me through a Jiu-Jitsu class. It would be called no-gi now.
Yeah.
But back then it was just trying to do some wrestling on a Saturday morning. Taught me like a double leg, some mount and side control stuff, and a Kimura. And then we did some sparring as well.
Nice.
Like submission wrestling sparring. And I loved it, but it didn't catch my eye because I was already doing it anyway. I was already wrestling people, so it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to do this now. I was too focused on rugby. So I kind of just used it as like a vehicle to get better at rugby. So I'd do that like maybe 3 times a week. I was doing no-gi jiu-jitsu, but wasn't called no-gi jiu-jitsu then. It was just wrestling.
Yeah.
I'd just go on the mat with a couple of mates and a couple of training partners, and then obviously do rugby training as well alongside that. And then fast forward till 2026 when I retired from rugby league, abruptly retired. Was lost for 6 months, very low. Was suicidal a little bit for quite a while. I don't really tell a lot of people, but I thought I'll bring it up. Because my life's goal was to play professional rugby league, and once that was over, I was kind of, I had no purpose, so wasn't motivated by anything. Money didn't motivate me anymore. Wasn't motivated by sport because I'd been there and done it. But in the past few years of playing rugby, professional rugby league, I did fall in love with wrestling, like actually doing the wrestling. I was like, I really enjoy this, and I got a thought that if I retire, I'll maybe pursue it as something to do as a hobby. So I had about 6 months off doing nothing, and then I was like, I'll just go down, fuck it, I'll just try a class, and that's what I did. Started off at ASW Manchester, where I met you. We camped at Takuru, and after the first session, I was just like, this is what I needed, and this is what I need to do really.
Did you find, like, not to like sort of go back too much to like, suicide things? Like, did you find like that sort of helped with that aspect of like mental health as well with yourself?
Grappling.
Yeah, or just sort of not necessarily the sport itself, but kind of being back in that sort of environment with like training partners and things like that, or would you say it was the grappling itself?
Yeah, I think a bit of both. I think for me, I'm quite introverted. I'm quite a quiet guy, and I come from a sport that's very boisterous, and you have to be loud as a professional athlete, as a rugby player. You're supposed to be loud. I never really felt accepted in rugby because you're in a room with 20 people, and you're all fighting for position to play in a team. And then when I started doing grappling, people left me alone. I went into a room and people didn't care whether I spoke or not. That actually meant a lot to me, that I don't have to talk.
Yeah.
It's like I said, I'm quite introverted. And I really enjoyed, without them actually realising it, and accepting me, who I am. So I kind of just was like, I can come here, I can wrestle, but then I don't have to fit in. If I fit in, I fit in, that's fine. If I don't, they're not going to bother me.
Thing is, well, you could argue as well that essentially is kind of fitting in. Like, you're allowed to sort of be yourself in that room, and by proxy of that, you're fitting in to the sort of that environment there.
Yeah. So that was kind of my journey to jiu-jitsu. Completely by accident. It was completely random. Just picked the club, ASW Manchester, completely random. I actually went to try and go to do sambo. It wasn't jiu-jitsu. So because I was watching Khabib and stuff.
Yeah.
Khabib and the Michael Johnson fight happened, and that kind of catapulted me into thinking about doing grappling. How powerful that match was. So it's completely random. I went down, and I went down for a sambo class. I was like, I want to try sambo. That's what Khabib did. So, and they were like, oh no, it's not on tonight. It's submission wrestling, the cam. And I was like, oh, all right, I guess I'll do that then.
Yeah, fair.
So yeah, super nervous. I remember it. Remember it like it was yesterday. And even though I'd played rugby league for 20 years by that point, I was still super nervous to even walk in and like, do a class.
So it's a big change though, isn't it? Like, kind of coming from a room where you've got these big expectations of yourself, and then like going into sort of an environment where you're relatively unknown, you don't know what the response is going to be, especially like considering your build and whatnot. Like, you kind of expect a little bit of hostility sometimes walking into a room, kind of being a bigger guy, don't you?
It was more so that it was a new sport. It's a completely new sport. You know, I wasn't a beginner, far from a beginner. I'd already wrestled, but like I've never done grappling, like chokes and all that stuff. So yeah, and then got started from there.
Oh, because I remember those training days where like I remember sort of within the first 6 months of training, I was like, fucking hell, where's this guy come from? Like, I still remember one day. I still remember that one session. I think it was like a Wednesday morning. And we were just doing some stand-up rounds. I think it might have just been me and you and maybe like two other people in the gym. And we're playing around with a little bit of clinch. And you just manipulated my shoulders as I was walking down. And I was like, fuck's happening here? So like, I just couldn't get myself set. And then I just saw your level change. And I thought, fuck. And you went in for like a high double. And you ran me. Must have been about fucking 10 meters across the mat. And I was fucking trying to defend, trying to fucking hand fight. And I ended up with my ass on the floor like, fucking hell, yeah, I'm going to have to fucking figure out that. And then I see, going back to what we were talking about before, first thing I remember doing afterwards was like, what the fuck did you do to set that up?
Yeah.
And you just talked me through, explained like the idea behind it. And it's a concept that I still play with now when I'm sort of like clinching. It's just, just remember how quickly you sort of pick the other aspects of the sport that you maybe sort of hadn't trained in those sessions that you'd done. And it was, like I say, you became one of my main training partners like pretty early on in your training.
Yeah, I think that was a white belt, wasn't it?
Yeah. There's no chance you're a white belt out there, mate.
Yeah, crazy.
So like, how would you say the training culture is different between sort of like rugby and sort of grappling?
Yeah, it's interesting because I find grappling culture is quite bizarre. I still find it quite bizarre how it's quite hard headed of how they approach technical aspect of it. You know, I know a lot of jiu-jitsu schools obsess about technique. They think they do, but I don't think they do. For example, at professional rugby league level, like let's say I've been playing rugby for 10, 15 years. We're going over footwork of how to tackle someone. And no one ever puts their hand up and says, this is beginner stuff. You know, I'm not doing this. So we're practicing fundamentals all the time, every day. Well, not every day, but every time we're in the training ground, we're going over fundamentals and we're cutting it up into pieces. And then we're doing a very small amount of full contact at the end to play at the end of the week. Where jiu-jitsu is quite chaining everything together. Like you're doing a lot of technique, but it's rolling. It's like, it's not like judo, is it? Where it's like the little pieces of footwork.
Yeah.
And then you put the jigsaw piece together, which I found quite weird when I started jiu-jitsu. That I could see why people struggle.
Yeah.
Because I've come from like, look, your left foot needs to go in between the legs. Your right foot goes here.
Yeah.
You're driving forward. Really basic stuff. And then jiu-jitsu is like all these different add-ons together.
Because it's like I say, that is one thing that I've noticed is like everybody wants the sort of the new shiny technique, rather than kind of getting fucking really good at framing, creating space, the kind of the foundations, like not necessarily the fundamental positions, but like just the foundations of being in position or like defending a position or attacking a position, where if you kind of break it down, it's pretty much the same shit. Like framing, create space, create opportunity, off balance. Yet you see everyone kind of wanting the next Instagram reelable technique or what flying technique somebody did on the weekend on a random show, as opposed to kind of going, that shit's cool as fuck, but if I can't close the distance and fucking get hold of somebody, which is the basics of getting to that technique, you're not gonna be able to find it. So it's like, I get what you mean. Like there's not really kind of a love as much, I'd say, in the sport for like fundamentals and the kind of the foundational kind of things that are going to make you more successful in the long term with it.
Yeah, I think people are just not aware that less is more. Less is more. I tell this story all the time to some of my clients, and they get what I say, the point I'm trying to make. So before becoming a professional athlete, when I was a teenager/child, my parents didn't buy Sky for me. They didn't pay for me to watch rugby. I hardly watched rugby. I was imagining it and I was playing it. So I wouldn't watch it all week. So I'd play it on the weekend, and I'd also get up on a Saturday morning and try and watch Transworld Sport at 7 a.m. with the hope of having a segment of rugby. That was the only piece of educational thing I could watch about sport that I was trying to be a professional in, but I ended up being a professional. Isn't that weird? So I had isolation from. I actually had a lot of distance from the sport, which made me be very hungry towards it. Where if you've seen it all the time, every day, it's an explosion of techniques. It's like, and you know, if you come in the gym and you work on a basic arm drag from butterfly guard, you're gonna get really good at that arm drag, and you're gonna get on people's back, which is what I do. Like, it's not that difficult to hit an arm drag. It's very low risk. But how many people come in and like, I want to do an inversion to a heel hook, and like, but you give up when I pass your guard.
Yeah.
You give up. Let's focus on not giving up first. Get them fundamentals right. But yeah, I definitely think people are seeing way too much information overload, and I don't think they appreciate what the information the coaches are giving them. Because you're dissecting, you're thinking about what is best for them to digest. You're not thinking what the best technique is for them necessarily.
I think as well, like going back to sort of like the information stuff as well, like what sort of that athlete's doing at that time in that match is specific to their opponent, that scenario, and the reactions that they're getting from how they're moving. So what they do in that match may not necessarily be as applicable to your game unless you're able to create or recreate those same kind of circumstances to perform them in.
Yeah, definitely. And they are the 1% as well who you are watching. Let's not forget that. There's no way I could have give advice to an amateur as a professional rugby player. On what? Like I'm the elite. I was the elite. That's not being big headed. Like, if I'm trying to give someone that plays Sunday League rugby some advice on tackle technique, like, how applicable is that to him?
Yeah.
Really, he moves totally different than me. Like, it's totally different. But in Jiu-Jitsu, people seem to think that they can just copy and paste and put it into the game. Often doesn't work like that.
It's a way that because I'm fairly similar, where I don't watch loads of the sport. I'll watch like major tournaments, and maybe I'll watch like a little bit of sparring footage. But when I'm watching it, I'm kind of, so like a recent example was standing passing, and I saw the way that Craig Jones used a post and I think sort of backstep out through open guard, and I must have watched that segment of the clip, lost count to be fair, about like over 20-30 times. And for me watching that, it wasn't to kind of go, okay, I'm going to copy like that pass. It was, I want to understand the why and the how. And then I was coming in and trying to understand the principles of it when I was sort of applying it into my training. And it was all from like kind of watching how he entered into the position, how he then pinned the player, stopped, restricted the movement. And I was trying to recreate it for my own game. But then I wasn't trying then going and watching the rest of the round to then go, okay, I'm going to take that, and that as well. It was just sort of like, just that small highlight of it.
Yeah.
And like I said, and when I'm watching matches and fights for entertainment, I will watch them like with a non-critical eye. And then if there's something that I want to take back from it, I probably will go back and again take like a short segment of it. But yeah, I think we do fall victim to that kind of information overload and kind of seeing the whole of the like kind of going the next shiny thing, the next shiny thing, the next shiny thing.
Yeah.
Rather than watching something and go, that there would work really well in my game.
Yeah.
And trying to then like take that part out of it and then apply it in as well.
But I think a lot of people missing the real fun of learning though as well. I mean, not knowing what you're going to learn at class and having some distance from it.
Yeah.
You know, when you learn some techniques at class and train, having a few nights until you come back again it's an interesting thing to pursue. Like if you're just going home and you're always watching it and you're obsessively watching stuff, I'm not saying don't watch instructionals. If you want to, then go do it. But that is the process is showing up and learning and actually getting better yourself, not being a carbon copy of Gordon Ryan. We don't want. No one wants the same style. We want to have our own style. So understanding that your coach has got his own unique style. If you learn 5 techniques off him on a Tuesday night, you probably don't need another 5 that night or the day after or the day after that, because it's just too much, isn't it?
It's like you said as well, like when you were a kid where you didn't have Sky, but you were playing rugby in your mind.
Yeah.
So like, I'd imagine what you were doing during them training sessions. You were going home then after those training sessions, like breaking it down, seeing how it would fit into your style of play and like your match IQ at the time there, and then sort of going, okay, how can I further develop it, and I maybe going into like bad situations, good situations, whilst applying those principles that you kind of learned that night.
Yeah. There's a reason why you train. You have certain training sessions and you have days off. You need days off.
Yeah.
Mentally and physically, you need days off.
No, 100% with that.
Do you want to go into your story?
Yeah. So like, mine's probably a little bit different. So like, growing up, I wasn't the sort of most athletic or active kid. Did a little bit of karate, didn't like it. Did a bit of football, didn't like it at all.
You said you were a black belt in karate.
Oh yeah, fucking. It was Tekken and whatnot, yeah. And I just never really took sport as a kid, and then got to like teenage years, and I just went into the typical kind of like got a bit overweight, got more into gaming. Wasn't very social anyway, and like my mum had some quite big health issues, and my dad, due to that as well, was working probably 7 days a week, and most days it'd be 8 to 10 hours a day, to try and like sort of provide, but also then trying to be there for us at the same time. So like, I don't think he had the full energy and resources to then try to like drag me down to some sort of sports event and be like, no, you're going to stick to it, because it's probably easier for him to then be like, he doesn't want to go to karate anymore on a Wednesday night. That means that I can get home earlier, spend more time with wife and kids, and we can have a sort of night in as a family. So I kind of understand his rationale behind all that. So then when I was about 15, 16, found rugby, and like leading up to that through high school, I got bullied pretty badly as well, and just wasn't enjoying the school experience. But when I found rugby, I was like, oh, fucking hell, I like this. Like, part of the team, the lads that I trained with, like, fully felt that kind of like camaraderie there with it. And like, one of my favourite parts of it was I'd been training for a few months, and the lad who bullied me came to a rugby session.
Yeah.
He got the fucking ball, and I saw him, and I was like, no, fuck this, I'm not going to miss this opportunity. And I fucking ran straight into the fucker, put him in his arse, and he avoided the ball for the rest of the game. And I was fucking buzzing with that. Still bullied me outside of that, but that victory there for me, I was fucking really happy with that. And I think finding that's like rugby there and that sort of learning contact sport and almost kind of finding an alter ego when I was on the pitch and when I was in the training field, really helped me come out of my shell a little bit. And played for, it's like a development squad, and played for a couple of years. And then when I got to the sort of adults, from when I got to like 18, I was playing for like a third team somewhere, where sort of like during that transition, but every week I'd be turning up, and I'd then be like, nobody would turn up for the thirds. So then I'd be like, okay, well, you can sit on the bench for the seconds team. But because I had no experience in the adults league and I didn't train with the seconds, I wasn't getting any match time. And then when the thirds would turn up, I felt like having a fucking mint game. And then I was like, oh, great, I'll get invited to the next training session. And just never really happened. And it was just more often than not, the games were called off. So I just thought, fuck this, stop playing. And just went to the gym instead. Because I was like, I think I might have been about 17 and I was about 18 stone, I think it was. Like I was a big kid. Like I was wearing like double and triple XL. I'd wear 2 t-shirts because I was like trying to hide my fucking man boobs and I had the sweat patch and all that shit. So got to a point where I was like, no, I need to do something about this. And like I talk about this openly, where it's like my real main trigger when I was like, I think that age to really try and lose the weight, because the weight when I was playing rugby worked. I was a prop.
Yeah.
It's like you're kind of encouraged to be bigger. And then when I stopped playing and sort of that side of thing, and I was at the age where my friends, we were going out having a few beers, and that my friends were getting attention. I was always that kind of one of the, on their own, sort of sat on the sidelines.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, the difference between us is I'm overweight, they're not. They're getting attention, I'm not. Let's see if that changes things. And joined a gym and dropped loads of weight within a few months. And then I was working as like a window cleaner, and one of the lads that I worked with, he started talking about the UFC one week.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's that? So he brings a DVD in and he goes, you won't be able to do this, Si. Fucking started giving me a load of shit about it. Went home, watched the DVD. I remember Chuck Liddell was in the DVD, but I don't remember what event it was. And
you had to take a DVD out first, though, that was in before.
Yeah, that's it. I had to take the DVD out. For those that are too young for this, a DVD is like a and with him saying sort of like, you won't be able to do this, Si, or like basically calling me a shit house and I won't be able to do it, I was like, no, fuck you. Like I had a beer in my body now, I was having a preview wrong. Got straight to Google and researched like a few local gyms, and I saw there was SBG Manchester. It was Carl Tanswell running at the time, and the reason I went to that gym was because I saw he had Rosie Sexton fighting out of the gym.
Yeah.
And she was doing really well, and I was like, well, if they've got a successful athlete who's fighting all over the world here, I want to go and learn from this coach.
Yeah.
First day, like I said, shitting myself. Because like walking down, it was on Lever Street. Walking down the street, couldn't find it. I just saw this red doorway with SPG above the door. Went through, and it was going down these dingy stairs into this sort of sweaty, kind of misty kind of room.
Yeah.
And there's this bloke there, fucking just shouting at the room, telling everyone to do stuff. And I was like, okay. I was like, is this where you sign up for class? Really, really timid.
Yeah.
And
what was the warm up? I'm interested. Do you remember?
I think it was like jogging, rolling, shrimping, squatting, like
Nice.
typical kind of like jiu-jitsu warm up of like running around the mats and doing all that. And then, but there wasn't really a separation in kind of like fundamentals to advanced and stuff. It was kind of like grappling class.
Mixed together.
Yeah.
That's great.
And trying to sort of like learn the techniques. I can't remember the technique it was that was being learned, but there was one round that really, really sticks out in my mind. Like, would never remember back on this day. And it was with, she's a black belt now, Anna Main. And I walked in there sort of like 90 kilo, I think 90, 95 kilo, but I'd been at the gym for about a year or something. So I thought myself pretty fucking strong and big. And I dropped like a lot of the fat that I was carrying as well. So I was like, yeah, I'll fucking have a go at this. And slapped and bumped this with Anna, and she tied me up in knots. And she was half my size, like I think about 50 kilo, I'd say.
Yeah.
And
you very first started in the gi.
Yeah.
Which is even more.
Oh, it's fucking horrible, yeah. Like having sort of a cloth across your face and fucking being unable to move while you've got someone who's essentially half your size, just twisting you and tying you up like a pretzel.
What was she then? Purple belt?
She must have been a purple belt, I think, yeah.
Was that your very first session or the first few sessions?
That was my very first session, that one, yeah.
That they put you with that.
Yeah.
That's great.
I can't remember whether they put me with her or whether it just sort of happened, like it was during the like rolls towards the end of class, and yeah, she just fucking twisted me up. And afterwards, when I got up, I was like, there wasn't a kind of thing of going, what the fuck happened there? I'm not doing this again. It was like, I want to learn how to do that to somebody.
Yeah.
I was like, if this person who's half the size of me can do this to me, and I thought I was quite strong and could move around pretty well, said, I really want to learn how to do this. And it's fun as fuck. And I wanted to start off by doing like MMA. So the gym at the time I was in, like, I'd messaged the coach, and he just blanked me.
Yeah.
And this was before like Instagram and everything. It was I think Facebook Messenger, and I messaged him, and he blanked me. And then like the next week I went in and sort of asked him because I was like, I want to do a bit of MMA and pursue it. And essentially he was just sort of like didn't entertain the question or entertain the conversation for me, which took me back a little bit. But I was like, in my head, I was like, no, I've got to prove myself a bit more to kind of like be seen by him, which personally should never be a fucking point in a gym. Like, if you can't have a conversation with your coach about something, like whether it's face to face or over Messenger, because I know can be pretty shit with replying on messages. But if someone pulls me in the gym for a conversation, I'm always going to have time for them.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it kind of like, I was like, okay, I just need to kind of prove myself. And then 6 months into that, the gym shut down. So from there, went to Fighting Fit with Martin Cahill. And I was there till about purple belt, like with like training there, like saw the gym go from just mats in a corner of a room to having the facility that they're in today, actually. And I learned a lot, but for me, like I was doing a lot of MMA there, and I kind of fell out of love with MMA, but fell more in love with grappling because personally, I wasn't seeing the progress that I was wanting to see in it. But when I was trying to sort of like find the advice and find the guidance to kind of get the right sort of training to make the right progress, I wasn't finding any good answers. And by good answers, like there wasn't really kind of like any solutions. I was like, oh, I want to get better at boxing, so just come to striking class. It's like, oh, what about the boxing club down the road? No, just come to striking class.
It was known as cage fighting though, then, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a rare kind of thing, wasn't it?
Yeah. And like I say, I had a few fights, enjoyed it, but yeah, just after a while going to work on a Monday with concussion and whatnot, just kind of got very thin, especially when there wasn't the pipeline that there is now for MMA where you can sort of see clear career progressions. And just fell in love with jits. And I moved to Factory and ASW at around purple belt.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, so yeah. I moved, like due to work reasons and sort of like met yourself at ASW, and it was back before it was the red mats. It was like
Tilsley, wasn't it?
up in Tilsley, yeah, travelling up there twice, I think about 3 or 4 times a week. So I'd be going to the day sessions with Darren, training in the evenings with Cam, going to a Factory to do gi. And after a bit of time, I got to a point where I was like, I'm just loving doing no gi.
Yeah.
And then that's when I made sort of like the full move to ASW. And then got the opportunity to open up Hive in a church hall. And then from it's just everything's kind of progressed now to where we are now.
Yeah, amazing, mate. Amazing to hear.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's crazy looking back on it though.
Yeah, it's crazy. How long have you been training now altogether?
I think it's about 16 years now, to be fair. I started around like mid-18, mid-19, like around 18, 19 years old. So 35 now, about 15, 16 years now. And like, I'll be honest, like the variety of training and visiting other gyms and things like that, if I was honest, I'd much prefer it to be able to have the freedom to have like a home base to always come back to and have like one coach to refer back to kind of on my progress and be able to go and visit these gyms. But back when back 10 years ago, 15 years ago, there wasn't that culture. It was always like, you train here, you train nowhere else because they're going to find our secrets out. It's like, what fucking secrets? It's like, it's punching, kicking and fucking strangling each other. Like, if anything, if you want the sport to grow, you need to allow your students to visit elsewhere, because they're only going to go learn somewhere, come back, and make your mat better. Unless you're a bit paranoid about your coaching, and you're not thinking, and if you're worried that they're going to find something else elsewhere, that's why coaches, my personal opinion, that's why the coaches are very much like, you can only train here, you can't train anywhere else, just because they're scared that their students are going to find better things elsewhere. Which, if you're confident in your coaching abilities and you're confident in what you've created and the culture and the community you've created, fucking, like I say to everyone at Hive, it's like, visit us wherever you can. Like, get those rounds in, because it's just going to add more variety. It's just going to make you better overall.
Definitely, mate, definitely.
So yeah, with training, like you say, there's a lot of people who will do just gi, just no gi, and you'll even see it now where some won't want to wrestle, and that goes across. And so, and by wrestling, like, I'm referring to kind of the stand-up element, so like the judo part of it.
Doing a wrestling class.
Yeah.
Turn up to wrestling class.
Yeah. And you see it across the board with, like, even some of the higher, more experienced players, where they just won't want to do the stand-up part of the game because they're that reliant on attacking the legs, maybe, or
for whatever reason, they just don't want to train it.
Yeah,
but it's all skills, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I think you've got to ask yourself, why are you grappling? If you are cutting off skills in certain areas, if your sole goal is to just beat people in the gym, then maybe just stick to coming to open mat and going 100 mile an hour until your joints are absolutely shot to shit. that's literally what's going to happen. Where if you do gi, no gi, and you wrestle, you can do all three simultaneously in a round. You know, if you're on bottom, you can sweep, come on top, you can disengage, you know, play standing, you know, set traps, land a takedown. You can chain it all together, but I think it comes back to people asking why are they grappling to begin with.
I think as well it goes back to a discussion that we've had a few times, like, what kind of black belt do you want to be? Like,
I'll take credit for that quote.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's how you've like it. When you said it to me, it really kind of like stuck with me, and it did get me thinking. I was like, well, for me, I've always enjoyed playing all aspects of it. Like, I want to be a very well-rounded black belt. I don't want to be a specialist on one part where it's going to take away from another aspect of my game.
Yeah.
Whereas I want to understand all of it. I want to know how to play all of it. Because at the end of the day, I got into this sport I got into the sport initially to sort of have a go, and then I stayed in the sport because I saw the longevity and I fell in love with it. And I want to be able to play for as long as I can. Yeah. Now, the more I understand wrestling, bottom game, the gi game, top game, no gi, the difference in the rule sets, I can play both. It's going to give me kind of more longevity in the mats. Yeah. So I can get to 50, 60-year-old and be able to play all aspects of it and understand all aspects of it as well, as opposed to kind of isolating and creating like a massive hole in my game and then maybe getting to 40 years old or 10 years in and realizing that I'm starting from the very, very beginning of developing this new skill. And for me, it's kind of been all about like being as well-rounded as I can. And it's like you sent me that Gordon Ryan video you sent me as well.
Yeah.
It's like, he's not a specialist. He's the most well-rounded grappler. And
people just think he is, don't they?
Yeah.
Just think he is a specialist from bottom.
And that's a great perception that he's managed to give people. Like, you try to pass his guard, he'll leg lock you or sweep you. But then also, if you play bottom on him, he will pass your guard. He will find a way to take you down, or if it benefits him, like the Nicky Rod and Gordon Ryan match, where he gave the single leg up, fell to his back, played guard, and got the sub. And he understands and knows how to play all aspects of the game very fucking well, and not just kind of knowing one aspect, like as a specialist and expert, and then once he can't use that part, his game's not fucked.
Yeah. But what do you think to, like, not just the technical aspect, what do you think of the sport going forward if people continue to not do wrestling and pick either gi or no gi? Obviously, for a long time, you've probably known people that only do gi.
Yeah.
But I would say they're tougher than people that do no gi, personally, that just do gi.
Yeah.
So what would you say to the people that, for example, that are here at this club or they're at other clubs, they don't attend wrestling classes, which are readily available for them. They don't do gi, and they only do just the no gi classes.
I'd say that you're missing like a really big part of your own development, and you're kind of putting yourself in a corner. So if you were to just come in and do no gi, like, not wrong with that. But for me, what I learned from the gi is submission defense has to be a lot tighter, because there's a lot more control that goes on with a gi.
Yeah,
and if they manage to, and if they're able to sort of isolate a limb, you've got to work fucking hard to get there. Whereas in no gi, you can kind of get away with a bit of athleticism with it. You can see, and like if someone grabs hold of your foot, there's a little bit of sweat there, you can slip it out and fuck off. And you'll see it with like athletic white belts and blue belts who know how to play will beat the brown and purple belts through athleticism as opposed to through the skill set.
In no gi.
In no gi, that is, yeah. Whereas in the gi, it's kind of harder to hide behind your attributes, and it's harder to hide behind, like, it's harder to hide the holes in your game, because you've got a lot more friction there, you've got a lot more control that you've got to attain or try and prevent the person in front of you from getting. And it slows the sport down, like in the sense of you probably have a slower pace round, but you're forced to think more. And when you add that part into your game and you have those sort of, like, I call them thinking rounds, you then help yourself when you need to have those quicker reaction rounds, because you've already gone through the thought process of how do I get out of this, and done the problem solving at a tempo and a pace that is appropriate for your sort of learning level. So then when you go maybe back to no gi, you can react quicker because you've already got the reps in the gi. And when it comes to sort of like the wrestling side of things as well, everyone only thinks that that's just taking someone down. But there's a lot more to wrestling than just starting from the feet and then ending up on the floor. Like, what I get from wrestling is it gives you more fight to get back up to your feet. So like you learn to kind of create more space, have a bit more grit in you when you need to get back on top or get up. Pinning somebody down, like Jiu-Jitsu's got some great techniques to holding someone down, but when you've come against a good wrestler and they know how to pin somebody, there's a different fucking level of...
Or even playing guard against a good wrestler.
Yeah.
Good luck getting hold of them, like, when they're trying to pass, like a wrestler does.
Breaking that posture and sort of knocking them off balance. Like, there's a lot of skills that you learn in wrestling that transfer over to the ground game. Even, like, say, the balance side of things. If you develop your balance from being prevented taken down over and over again, that's only going to translate really well over to stopping someone from sweeping you as easy. You're going to be much more aware of where your weight is, how to distribute your weight, and how to use your weight properly with that wrestling skill set in you when you're trying to hold someone down or when you're trying to wrestle up on somebody. And I think it makes you more resilient as well. Like, that's one of the major things I took away from when I first started doing like wrestling classes is you're going to get fucking tired. There's no denying that.
No hiding places.
No, there's nowhere to fucking hide, because your opponent in whatever length around it is, they're in front of you.
Forehead to forehead.
Yeah. They're gunning for you. And if you are fucked and you can't find a way to attack, you've still got to.
you're going to get taken down.
Exactly.
That's all right.
And as soon as your ass hits the floor, sort of like trying to get that habit of, even though I'm tired, boom, like fighting back up. And I think as well, learning to play tired. So like your style will change as fatigue sets in. So I noticed that when I'm tired, I'll go to a more counter kind of style of wrestling.
Yeah.
But I'm still trying to press forward and force you to attack from a bad position rather than sort of shying away and sort of being away and letting you set up. So it kind of, even though you're tired, you're still digging deep, pushing that attack forward and getting yourself into good positions and ignoring that little voice in the back of your head that's going, just sit on the side, just sit this round out.
I'm going to say something controversial, but I think if you commit to more wrestling classes, you'll level up quicker. Way quicker than people that are only doing jiu-jitsu.
Oh, 100%.
Because the attributes it gives you from just the skill set of practicing wrestling.
Yeah.
Just even the warm-up. I mean, you feel like you're about to attack and then a proper warm-up, which you should be doing warm-ups if you're wrestling.
Yeah.
You know, proper high-level wrestling practice. They do warm-ups, so deal with it. Don't come late trying to miss it. But I think we've just forgotten how much takedowns matter.
Yeah.
If you cannot effectively take a bigger opponent down, that's a problem.
Yeah.
If you're a coloured belt and you don't know a basic single or double leg, that's a problem. But on the other hand, it's okay to get taken down.
Yeah.
That's then your job to go through the learning process and go, oh my God, I'm getting taken down. I need to go on my own journey of improving my wrestling, which a lot of people hide from. And all of a sudden they're wondering why I'm not progressing, or I'm come to a jiu-jitsu class, I'm losing, I'm manhandling, where I found so many times I've sparred with people and I'm like, wow, what was that? And they're white belt. They've just been wrestling. They've just wrestled before, like not even to a high level. They just, oh yeah, I've been wrestling for a few years. They'd be a purple or brown belt in a lot of jiu-jitsu gyms.
Yeah.
Even if you look at J-Rod, just to make an example, like I heard something the other day that he had 136 high school matches, or something like that, high school wrestling matches. I mean, his results on the show where he is now in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm not saying you need to commit to a high school wrestling program, but like, I'm not blowing my own trumpet here, but and your trumpet as well. We've got good wrestling at this gym, and there's a lot of people that are not taking advantage of it. They're kind of just not attending and doing open mat, and that's okay if that's what you want to do, but there's a massive skill set that you're missing out on, I think.
Yeah, like I say, I definitely agree with, like, say, the accelerated progression that you're going to get with wrestling. Because, like you say, it's not only the physical attributes as well, but like the mental aspect as well that you get with it. Like, I remember when I first started learning how to shoot a double leg, and I would not like doing. I didn't like doing them and enjoying live rounds.
Yeah.
Just because the thought of fucking yourself sprawling on me and then having to try and fight back up while you're trying to keep me on the floor would fill me with anxiety. But I'd have to have a conversation with myself.
That's grappling though, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people now think that's wrestling, but that's grappling.
Yeah.
So, and they'll probably argue, yeah, but it's in a wrestling class, it's not in a jiu-jitsu class. Well, I'll argue in competition, when you try a takedown, they sprawl on you.
Yeah.
So is that wrestling or is it jiu-jitsu?
It's essentially you end up in turtle position. Yeah. So, like say, it is essentially just jiu-jitsu or grappling in general.
Without a gi,
yeah. And like I said, I'd come away from, like, after those rounds after the real conversation with myself and being like, just been fucking practicing this. And also, the only way to get better at it is to do it. And like, once I got over myself and got into that habit of shooting more and putting myself in those vulnerable positions, confidence fucking skyrocketed. And my sort of will to fight kind of jumped right up again. And those kind of like anxiety inducing rounds dissipated.
Yeah.
Because it was like, oh, there's nothing to worry about here.
Yeah. I actually get bored with jiu-jitsu. Like if I took a break from doing wrestling stand aspect of grappling, I genuinely get bored with jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Because obviously, as you know, when we started at ASW, where I started at ASW Manchester, I'm so lucky that Cam was teaching the whole game in a certain way, similar to yourself, like how you teach it. It's not just the ground. Teaching that control from the top position, like when you get lost in when you're sparring wrestling, you are lost in sparring standing up.
Yeah.
Literally, like if I take a second off, someone's gonna blast double leg me, gonna snap my head down. In jiu-jitsu, you don't really get that. It's a lot more playful.
Yeah.
And it's slower. And that is again why people avoid wrestling, because it's so hard. But again, yeah, you've got to put them together. I think that's the point I was bringing it up, isn't it?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think for me as well, like even outside of the competition and sort of progression aspect, for those that get into the sport for self-defense, like you're not going to sit on your ass if someone's threatening you and scoot towards them like that. You start standing and you want to try and stay standing. And like the physical attributes you're going to get from doing the wrestling session and your ability to control distance and put someone on the floor in a manner that's going to keep yourself safe is going to fare you so much more better than learning a fucking guard break or a heel hook.
Yeah. People call me a wrestler, which is quite frustrating as well, because I'm not a wrestler. Like that, people say, "Oh yeah, you're a wrestler. Like I want to train at the gym." It's like, no, I've done jiu-jitsu. Like I've just done jiu-jitsu with wrestling. Like I don't really see them as separate things. But
No.
a lot of people do see them as separate things, don't they?
Yeah, because that's like I'm the same. Whereas like I look at it as just grappling now. Like there's no separation in like the judo, the wrestling, the jiu-jitsu, like other separate elements of grappling. It's just grappling, and that's what we try and teach. Like when we're doing it, like it's like your wrestling class will incorporate getting someone down to the floor, keeping them on the floor, transition into like a submission from there, and chaining it all together so it's a complete system. Rather than going, okay, double leg one, double leg two, they react this way, double leg three. Okay, if they react this way, you're going to go for a single leg. And then.
And very often in competition, it's like it's them 1 second decisions. Like if you're in bottom full guard and you don't wrestle, like you genuinely don't come to wrestling class, you are not going to have the confidence to open your legs, get to butterfly guard, wrestle up, get the two, get the win. You're not going to have that confidence, are you?
No.
You're going to just stay in guard because that's what you do in class. You stay in guard.
Yeah.
There's that unspoken agreement that we're both going to stay on the ground, which doesn't happen in wrestling.
No.
Because they don't give a shit.
No.
Any agreements.
And I think as well, like going back to what you said about the boredom side of it as well, it's like the most fun rounds you can have, for me personally anyway, are the ones where you're incorporating stand up and the ground multiple times in this round. Like so if like there's rounds that we've had where like say one of us is turtled up and we're trying to fight back to the feet while the other one's trying to keep us down, and then one of us will get out and then it's sort of like back to wrestling, and then maybe close distance, and then it might be a case of one of us can't find the entry for the takedown, so maybe one of us will pull guard and play guard from there, and then maybe try and wrestle back up and then try and find the entry again. And they're harder, don't get me wrong, but they're so much more fun, and you take away so much more sort of like skill development from that as well, because you're chaining the ground aspect with the stand-up aspect and then bringing it back down and then bringing it back up. And if you're in a position that you don't like, you're not shy to get back to your feet. Like one of the things we've been looking at, situation we're looking at has been bottom side control, and you're trying to get back to your feet from that position, because trying to defend someone from regarding bottom side control, relatively easy, to be honest. Trying to stop someone from standing back up when they're on bottom side control is a different story. And someone who's really, really adamant to try and get back up to their feet, and even while you're trying to keep them down and pin them down and trying to transition round, that's a whole different energy system. That's a whole different battle you're going to be in. And just makes you play differently. And like say, and having that confidence to be like, okay, I can get back to my feet and then put this fucker on the back again. It just gives you another level of confidence, I think, as well.
Yeah. And everything goes in waves, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, so if you're a white and blue belt, listen to this, and you're not very confident in the wrestling, pick it up because the guard, I would say, loose passing and guard play at the minute, butterfly, Delahiva, all that type of stuff. It's quite, you know, it's in there, isn't it? At the minute, that's that kind of style. Wrestling is here and there at the highest level, but it's not like super, you know, super kind of popular with a sub-only scene. Things come in waves. So if you're not wrestling, you know, with CGI coming along, like with the padded walls, you are going to get left behind. It's
100%.
If you're not evolving your game. But also a lot of people that are doing it, they're obsessed. A lot of people that are just training jiu-jitsu, you're obsessed with jiu-jitsu. If you're going to want to teach it one day, wouldn't you want to do it all?
Yeah.
Because, you know, again, what black belt do you want to be? Like, oh, yeah, I'm rolling a blue belt and I'm a black belt, but can I start on the ground? It's like, how's that going to work? You know, because that blue belt's going to take you down and then probably jump on your back and strangle you.
Yeah.
Because, if you're just only confident in that kind of position, it's just crazy, isn't it?
And I think as well, there's an element of maybe pride and ego with it as well, where like someone maybe like a purple belt, brown belt, and even blue belt, where they've not done wrestling prior, and it's kind of like stepping on the mats for that session, knowing that
they're going to lose. They're going to lose every single exchange, but it gets easier. It just gets easier, doesn't it? And no one cares. Like, obviously, you've not got your gi jacket on at wrestling class, and no one even cares what belt you are. But
no.
I mean, I just see the evolution of the lads and the girls here that after 6 months of just doing wrestling once or twice a week there's so many levels above now where they were.
It's scary. And like I've been off a couple of weeks with an injury and watching them sort of wrestle and kind of going, fucking, I might be hands full now when I go back and start wrestling again.
Yeah, it's awesome. But I think if you put the jacket on after you've got that wrestling base, or you go to a no-gi class, just no-gi jiu-jitsu, and that wrestling base doesn't go.
No.
It's there to be seen.
Yeah, definitely. At the moment then, where you're at within the sport, like coaching, going to be competing soon and trying to get like competing more, like what are your main current goals then within the sport at the moment?
I said it to you the other day. It's about I'm not sure I did say it to you. I said it to someone. mixing the wrestling with jiu-jitsu, and not just for people who want to compete, but actually for the sport as a whole. Because I've trained at quite a few gyms now over the years. It's a whole that I see, which is the stand-up aspect of jiu-jitsu. And if I could have a hand in changing that thought process, that a white belt comes into a gym and he starts on his bum, like that excites me to change that, because if that white belt, has a dig on and has the car park, full guard's not going to help you, mate.
No.
Like, but also, for people's mental health, jiu-jitsu, of course, can help, but there's something about the stand-up aspect that gets me fired up and gets other people in that fight or flight mode. I feel a lot more intense than sitting down doing jiu-jitsu. So I guess my goals would be to see how get jiu-jitsu, get the wrestling game in jiu-jitsu as dominant as like bottom guard is, really.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but probably my own personal goals are just to keep doing what I'm doing, try and get back to competing. Had some injuries over the past 6 months that have just been unavoidable. Nearly blew my knee out a few weeks ago.
That video still gives me nightmares.
Loving coach at the minute. I'm just getting warmed up. I've not competed for a while, so I can compete for another 10 years once I get back into it, for sure. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. And then, know you spent a bit of time over in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So, are there any sort of big differences in the training culture? say, from when you were training in New Zealand versus over in the UK?
Yeah, I think I felt lucky. I went over there and I'd come from like a wrestle heavy, top control and bottom game gym in Manchester. When I went over there, I found it really interesting because they just started on the bum, which I didn't like to begin with. But I actually grew to love it because it made me address my weak areas, which at the time were leg locks as a blue belt. We'd go into the gym and they'd be like, right, we're going to do single leg X. And I'm like, where's the warm up? You know, what do you mean? So straight into leg locks and we're doing leg locks and it's totally alien to me. I've always warmed up. So doing it in reverse was interesting. But then also at this gym where I found my home in New Zealand, there was a very good freestyle wrestler there called Toby, and he wrestled for New Zealand for Commonwealth Games there.
Nice.
So he taught wrestling as well. So I was able to still do the two. But the culture there is I'd say it's getting more high level with jiu-jitsu than probably what it used to be a few years ago, because obviously jiu-jitsu worldwide is getting more popular. But I think me doing that style, me having to sit down, like go to a class and sit down, not wrestle, was really good for me. I think if I'd just carried on being quite hard-headed around leg locks and the bottom game, probably wouldn't be the rounded grappler that I am now. But yeah, I learnt so much over there. Completely different approach. One thing I love that they do is they just don't rush the teaching. Like they just keep it super basic, but advanced. I mean, we were doing topics for like 4 or 5 weeks there, which I loved. We did a lunch class that every day was like the same, which was crazy to me because I was like, oh my God, I've come from like doing a hard warm up, doing some upper body clinching, doing a few takedowns, then we're sparring on the ground, and then we're mixing it all together to just we're doing DARS for 45 minutes. Oh, sorry, 30 minutes technique, 30 minutes sparring. That was the session. Really simple. And I was like, I'm not sure about this, but if you go 3 times a week, you're doing 3 sessions of DARS, you know, or you're doing 3 sessions of heel hooks. So that was really cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Let's get yours out, man. This first one's not too personal. Like, what do you believe like holds the average practitioner back, like in terms of not just skill set, like their approach, kind of the mindset, feedback. What kind of holds them back? Would you say?
Do you know what? Like, it's gonna sound like a bit of a cliche answer, but it's 9 times out of 10 it's themselves. Whether it's letting their ego and pride kind of step in when it comes to kind of development side of rounds, whether it's like allowing the thoughts of others to affect like their choices. So like getting criticism of your mates for going, oh, you're fucking doing that huggy gay shit type of stuff, and it's like, because I get that all the time, especially when I first started, and it's sort of like allowing those kind of like things to sort of limit their like ability to sort of even come to class sometimes. I'd say the biggest sort of barrier that people come across with progress is themselves. They'll believe their own limiting beliefs. They'll believe the negative.
That's powerful to say that. Yeah.
Well, a lot of people do, and like I'll be honest, like I believed my own self limitations as well for about 31, 32 years. Like I've only just sort of started to kind of fully combat those like self limitations that I've put on myself. And I'll be honest, I feel a lot better for it, for addressing them and starting to try and combat through them. And I think everyone allows those kind of thoughts to sort of fully get in the way of their own progress, whether it is grappling or even if it's life itself. Like, to come away from like the grappling subject, you hear a lot of people kind of complain about the situation that they're in their own life, without realizing it's their own decisions that's got them there, and their lack of action that's going to keep them there. Whereas if someone's unhappy with their wage, like, are they being proactive in trying to get promotion, proactive in trying to maybe find a new career, maybe being proactive in cutting the costs so they've got more of that wage to sort of live with if they don't want to change their jobs. People are unhappy with, like, say, if it's how they look or their own health, but then they're not going to take the action to actually make those changes to allow themselves to progress.
Yeah, that's awesome, mate. Yeah. And then last one for you is, what can you remember from our time training together, when we first trained together?
Hard rounds, to be honest, mate. Like, the main, like, really big thing that I remember was how quickly you picked up those new, like, concepts and techniques. And I'd always want to drill with you. So, like, because when we were training, like, Cam would always do the pairing up for the classes. And I'd fucking buzz if it was like training with you, because your gas tank was always better than mine. So it's like when we're getting reps and I'm getting tired, and it's like, say it's a double leg on a sprawl, turn the corner, go into the next position, then get back up and get the next rep in. Seeing you get up quicker than me, I was like, nah, fuck that. Like, he's newer to the sport than me. I need to fucking try and lead a bit more by example. So, like, that was always one thing where it's like, I'd feel like I'm kind of like not playing catch up in like the side of like skill development side of things, but like
work ethic,
gas tank and work ethic. Yeah, that work ethic was just something I'd never come across within the sport. And that was like one of the key things that stood out and made me really want to train with you more.
Yeah, that's great, mate. Thank you.
And yeah, the skill development, like, it was just fucking amazing to observe, to be honest. Like, it's one thing that I love watching when you see someone like new come in and just pick things up like that, and you see them play and experiment with it, and seeing that from yourself, and then having like just talking to you about it, and then like the conversations on the side of the mats, and just like that. I just enjoy being on the mats with you, to be honest.
Good times.
Yeah, really good times, like really hard training sessions, and like you pushed me probably more than you thought you did at the time. Like, you probably acknowledge it now how well you pushed me, but at the time you really pushed me as a like, oh mate, yeah. And I fucking felt it. I fucking felt it, mate.
Yeah. It's a competitive room, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have to try and win.
But like,
that's wrestling.
But that's what I loved about it, and loved about training with you. It was like there's always like, I always felt like I had to keep pushing myself as well to keep ahead.
Yeah.
Or we give the illusion that I am trying to keep ahead, because there was times where you were fucking running doubles on me, fucking catching me in subs, and it was just very like eye-opening and being like, fucking loving this.
Yeah.
And yeah, like that work ethic you had, and like say your gas tank, fucking used to get nightmares going home from training going, I don't know how the fuck he keeps going.
No, I think that's really, really good to bring up, is that like working hard should be the gold standard.
Yeah.
There is a lot of people that come off the mat and they haven't worked hard. Like, if you don't like working hard and you're doing this, like, think about your approach, because if you can get that in your toolbox, you're going to get really good a lot quicker. Coming to training with, like, obviously what you're going to work on technically is great. Like, you probably passed a lot of people even thinking that way, but come with the mindset that, you know, if you go with a training partner, I'm going to push a little bit harder.
Yeah.
Still be playful, but I'm going to push a bit harder. if they're starting to gas and the round ends, grab them again.
Yeah.
Don't just think, oh, I've done one round, I'll grab someone else. Grab them again.
Yeah.
Grab them again. Or if someone's beating you consistently, grab them again.
Yeah.
Go. You know what?
Chase down those anxiety rounds.
Yeah, they're my kryptonite. I'm gonna go with them.
Yeah.
But yeah, good times, mate. Well, one thing that stood out for me with you was how just you dismantled me with like your submissions. Because you're one of the first kind of big guys that I roll with that dismantled me and like left me for dead. Like a lot of guys at that time were dismantling me because it's a solid gym, but they dismantle me physically, but also with skill. Where you dismantle me with skill, a bit of physicality as well. But it was like trapping me, which I'd not really dealt with, which was actually great for my learning to go, okay, yeah, I've got the physicality, but I actually need to trap people and create anxiety.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, mate. Like, didn't look for you all like that, to be honest, mate. It felt like it was like.
Well, in the wrestling, it was competitive for sure. Yeah. But especially when we went to the ground, I mean, there was levels. I mean, I was white belt and you was purple.
But at the same time, mate, like the way that you like say that skill development, and you had a knack for just picking things up and understanding, which I think, because I've seen it from like people who've come from a sporting background and people who've come from a non-sporting background.
Yeah.
Like knowing how to move and being coachable is a really, really sort of big asset to have. And it was really noticeable with yourself. And I just remember like training sessions, even though they were fucking hard, it was just always fun. And I'd always come away feeling that I'd got that little bit better, whether it's fucking 5% or 1%, like, especially when we were like training together more, like it was just, and now when we're training together in air, every single round that we have, there's a new look, whether it's like the way that you've entered something and I'll go away and then I'm like, okay, I need to figure out how to like prevent that now or how I can add that into my game. And then like sort of you'll push me physically every single time, even if it's a playful round, we're still physical with it.
Yeah.
Which is a really hard skill to develop. Like being physical and playful as opposed to physical and trying to win, or playful and not having that physicality to it. Like it's something that I really appreciate of having you as like a training partner, where you can have both sides. And when we do have those heavy rounds, again, it's just pushing and like where like I'll maybe try and fall back and work on like rely on like a bit of technical stuff to try and get myself out of a hole. Whereas when I know that, okay, if I fall back into this position now, I'm not going to be able to fucking move, because your ability to pin and just keep someone down is fucking difficult. But then, like I say, what I was saying before, I'll put myself in those positions because I know that that's what you're good at.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I want to figure this out, because if I come across this outside of this room, I don't want to be stuck there.
I think there's something to be said about tough training partners. There's a lot on the internet now about tough training partners, and a lot of people take offence to tough training partners in the training room. You should cherish them because they're going to make you better.
Yeah.
Like God, so many of my rounds where I've had like really tough rounds with you and rounds with people over the years, they've made me better. They've made me go, right, I have to change.
Yeah.
I have to come to wrestling practice to even compete with this guy. Like I can't miss a wrestling practice. Like something I did at white belt was I figured out if I come to 3 wrestling sessions, I'll take over people. Yeah. Like it's going to be undeniable. Like I figured out they're not coming to 3 sessions. Like in 2 months, I'll be taking it down. It's undeniable, because that hour session is just so much value in the hour session compared to, we're learning bottom deep half guard sweep. Like how am I gonna hit that if we start standing and we never get to that position? So
no, 100%.
Yeah, I think cherishing those training partners and going to them as much as you can. I mean, even at here, I roll with people and then I never see them again. I don't see them again for another week, and like come back to me. Do 5 rounds with me, do 10 rounds with me. If you want. Say like, hey, let's do every round. And yeah, sure, let's do it. Or let's push the pace, because like you said, outside of the mat against other people, you want to get better, don't you?
100%. And that's one thing I really appreciate. Like you do it very often with me, and there's a few others now that are starting to do it with me when
You go back to back, don't you?
Yeah, when it gets to the end of that 5-minute round, keep going.
Just keep going.
Yeah, just keep going.
Yeah.
And sometimes it'll be 15, 20 minutes, sometimes it'll be 10 minutes, but trying to get in the habit of doing those back-to-back rounds really, really will push as well, because like, don't just ask when you're sort of in like a good position, like asking when you're in a fucking compromised bad position, going, are we keeping going here, or, and then like.
Yeah, and as well, something to add on, when I started Jiu-Jitsu, I was doing 15 rounds with coloured belts as a white belt.
Yeah.
And losing every second of every one of those rounds. Like, there wasn't one round where I even was halfway in to catching something. And it was ruthless, but I loved it. And
yeah.
I feel now a lot of people have lost that. They come in and they lose a couple of rounds and they're sulking. It's like, mate, you've done 5 rounds. Like, it's not tough to deal with.
No.
And it doesn't actually make them change very much, where if they did 10 rounds and they lost every round, they'd be in the car park saying, fuck, I need to come to wrestling.
Yeah.
Because I need to get tougher and better.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
That's
good, that, mate, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, I enjoyed that, mate. Thank you.
Awesome, mate.
No, I was talking about that, mate.
Don't know how long it was, mate, but